I'm Mike Kelzer. Growing up in my family's pharmacy, life moved fast. There was always something to do, someone to help. But the moments that meant the most to me as I think back were the conversations my dad and I would have about business and life itself. We'd get so absorbed. We'd talk for an hour and it would seem like 15 minutes. This podcast is my way of keeping those memories alive. There's no scripts, no outlines, no fluff, no hidden agendas. It's just real honest talk about the business of pharmacy and sometimes a little more. Let's dive in. Adam and Day, introduce yourself to our listeners.
My name is Day Lee. I'm a partner at Buchanan Ingalls Rooney. I'm a pharmacist-attorney assisting pharmacies as well as plan sponsors for their dealings against major pharmacy benefit managers. I recently joined Buchanan, leaving the first week of January along with my colleagues to better service my clients with a bigger platform.
My name is Adam Farkas. I work at Buchanan Ingalls Rooney along with Day. I handle a lot of pharmacy PBM matters, pharmacy board of pharmacy matters, as well as really any kind of action involving PBMs on behalf of plan sponsors, really anything prescription drug industry or supply chain related as well.
Day, I know you always spoke highly of your former firm, and I know that you've left there. You said a kind of a wider platform. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so Buchanan is a full service firm where we could provide any services that, whether it be transaction, FDA support, even like trust and estate issues. So at Pharmd, which is a great firm, it's limited to healthcare and life sciences. But at Buchanan, while we have a deep bench of healthcare and life science attorneys, we have other experts and attorneys who handle, matters for the client. And we also have a government relations team and professionals that could help with introducing bills or supporting bills and directing the notion of the pharmacy industry as well.
I tell you, Day, I learned my lesson years ago. We had kind of a family lawyer, and I was a guy in charge of all the financial stuff, just because mainly my dad and I were part of the pharmacy together, and I was eighth child, but I was the kind of the financial guy for him. So when he passed, and we had our family lawyer did all this stuff and all that over the years. When he passed, a couple of my siblings went off the deep end and contested all this stuff. And I believe that there was some background conversations going on. I don't know exactly what they were, but both of these attorneys, these family attorneys, they both folded. They both walked away and said, this is too much for us. And then we're left getting a new attorney. Here's the lesson. My lesson is go with a bigger firm if you can, even for family stuff. At least go with a place that has some litigation experience, courtroom experience, things like that, because you don't want this happening. You don't want someone folding on you just because it gets a little bit higher than they're used to, they're comfortable with. So that was the lesson I pulled from that. It's like, if I do family stuff with attorneys now, it's going to be in a big enough firm where I know that if things get, I should say anything, it's going to be a big enough firm where I know it can keep going up the ladder with more, maybe not more power, but different parts of the law and things like that. So there's a free one for the listeners.
Every attorney has specialty and expertise. Nobody can become experts in everything. So it's good to have a good supporting system and a group of attorneys who can handle different tasks.
All right. So Adam and Day, what's terrible in the world of pharmacy now? Does your business want to reach our 500 weekly listeners during this 10 seconds? Head on over to bizofpharmpod.com to find out how.
Semaglutide and tirzepatide used for diabetes, type 2 diabetes, as well as weight loss or weight management drugs. And these are Ozempic, Mounjaro, Zepbound. They are a hot topic, hot drugs in the market. A lot of pharmacies are struggling due to the low reimbursement rates imposed upon by pharmacy benefit managers. So many of them have tried to create another source of revenue, including compounding and GLP-1. They have been a very, very, very hot topic and a key revenue source for a number of pharmacies. Now, SBA has taken tirzepatide as well as semaglutide off of the shortage. And now a lot of 503A compounding pharmacies are in some sort of a unique situation where they don't know what to do. At the same time, I believe as early as last week or even today, Novo Nordisk, the manufacturer of semaglutide product, started sending out cease and desist letters to 503A compounding pharmacies, indicating that, hey, you should stop. We're directing you to stop compounding or purchasing from 503Bs and then dispensing it to the end users who are patients. 503A are compounding pharmacies regulated under the State Board of Pharmacy Regulation, and they can only compound prescriptions pursuant to patient-specific individual prescription. 503B outsourcing facilities are outsourcing facilities that meet the CGMP standards, and they can mass produce drugs that are on the shortage list. Both the semaglutide, Ozempic, Mounjaro, and Zepbound product were on the shortage list. FDA has taken semaglutide off of the shortage list. So FDA is allowing 503As for tirzepatide to continue compounding. Well, the date was already passed, but February 18th, or until the district court decision on the OFA versus FDA case, the preliminary injunction, is issued, whichever longer. So right now, the case is still pending. The outsourcing facility association filed a lawsuit against FDA, and as for preliminary injunction, the case is still pending. So 503A can still continue to compound, and FDA will not exercise its enforcement authority on them. However, again, that doesn't mean that the 503A compounding pharmacies are off the hook. 503A compounding pharmacies must be cognizant of the State Board of Pharmacy Regulation, but also potential legal action risk from the manufacturers. And for 503Bs, the FDA said they're not going to exercise its enforcement authority until March 19th, or until the district court decision on the preliminary injunction motion, whichever is longer. As for the semaglutide, FDA recently in the past couple of weeks, taken it off of the shortage list. So FDA said for 503As, you have until April 22nd. For 503Bs, you have until May 22nd. So what does this mean? So there are certain, potential deadlines for 503Bs to continue their compounding practice for compounds that have semaglutide and tirzepatide. But I'm not sure whether any of them are actually going to stop compounding pending the OFA versus FDA law. FDA has come out and said, hey, there's no shortage of semaglutide or tirzepatide. However, that's not what I'm hearing on the street per se. Pharmacies are still getting prescriptions of compounded products, and patients are having trouble accessing the medication. So there are a couple of reasons why I don't think shortage has resolved, because number one, I don't think the manufacturers are able to, at least at this point, are able to meet the demand, right? And also, in the event that prescription, let's say they meet the demands, then we have to really think about the reimbursement rate, because if you receive Ozempic or Mounjaro branded medication prescription, you have to go to a pharmacy, and that pharmacy must carry that product, and then that pharmacy can dispense it, but many times the pharmacies lose money because the reimbursement rate is below the acquisition cost of the product. And if they refuse to fill it, or if they don't have the stock, in place, then that prescription has to go to another pharmacy. And then, of course, the assumption is that patient insurance or prescription drug benefits cover the GLP-1. And I believe Lilly recently came out with their Zepbound direct-to-consumer model, which is about, I want to say, $499, but there are much cheaper compounded versions out there.
All right, Dave, thanks for your opinion on that, but who cares? You don't just get to decide what you think is right. Aren't we waiting for the law to come out and say this, or does it matter what your opinion on this is?
Well, I think it's the important thing is patient service and making sure patients have access to these drugs. FDA decided that shortage no longer exists. And the FDA has given firm deadlines to both 503A compounding pharmacy as well as 503B outsourcing facility. That is the FDA stand. And we'll also have to look into the State Board of Pharmacy stance on whether a 503A compounding pharmacy or outsourcing facility in that state can continue compound, or they have to stop per the FDA. And of course, as I mentioned before, these compounders have to be aware of potential legal action risk from the manufacturer.
If someone says, I'm going to keep doing it because, you know, the opinion is stuff like Day said about, is it available? How are the copays? Things like that. But if the FDA comes down and says it's not allowable, it's not like they get to go to the FDA and say, well, here's my opinion on it, right? I mean, isn't the rule just going to come down and they don't really care what anybody thinks?
Right. So for tirzepatide, though, you know, the FDA has come out and said that for 503A compounding pharmacy, FDA has come out and said 503A compounding pharmacy may continue to compound until the court renders any decision on the pending lawsuit.
And that was your opinion on which way you think the court should go.
Correct.
Gotcha.
And then, you know, that doesn't mean that they're not going to face any legal action by the manufacturer, or the State Board of Pharmacy may say, hey, in our state, we're not going to allow you to continue compounding tirzepatide.
Yeah, right.
There were several state AGs that signed on to a letter to the FDA talking about compounding at GLP-1s, and specifically how it's still relatively new. A lot of unlicensed, unregistered facilities are getting involved in it and selling these products across state lines. So it's definitely getting the attention of not only the FDA, but also state boards, state AGs. So it's something definitely worthwhile to pay attention to.
Adam, is that something that they're saying, because this is happening, let, you know, established pharmacies do it? Or does that give credence to just saying, because this is happening, let's just get this back to the manufacturers?
I don't think it's either. I think it was kind of the state AG saying, you know, this is a big problem that we have going on right now, that a lot of pharmacies, companies, industries are just involved in compounding these products without a whole lot of regulation in it. They were asking for, you know, the FDA, DOJ, whoever it may be, to kind of crack down on enforcement actions. But yeah, so that's just another angle, another legal risk, I guess, along with any manufacturer actions that, you know, pharmacies should be paying attention to.
When I was younger and not as wise, or maybe wiser than I am now, the law would come down, and I always thought, well, that's the rule. That's what it is. But I guess that's where all the judges, I mean, when you watch TV, the judge kind of sits back and scratches his goatee and makes this wonderful personal decision. It's none of that. I've been in court, you know, when they make a decision, they're just talking about case versus case versus case, you know, then they're saying, because of this, we're going to do this. And they mention all this Smith versus Jones and Brown versus Johnson, that kind of thing. And so laws are there, but the interpretation and then the court precedence of the cases often accompanies that. So it's like, well, what did they mean by this even? And until it's tried, sometimes you don't know exactly what something means.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to process like what was just said there, because I know the first thing he said was talking about a judge and how there's no personal nature to it. And I mean, look, I'm not a litigator. I'm not in court all the time. But I know, you know, this is just personal story, but my mom is a litigator. And when I went to law school, one of like the first lessons that she gave me, and I still think of it often today when we're working on whatever matter it may be, is the first judge that she ever interned for told her, like, you decide what is right based on whatever case is going on, and then you find me the law that allows me to do it. So, you know, I like that story, and I also think it kind of fits in with what you're saying, you know, Smith versus Jones, Jane Doe versus John Doe, whoever it may be, kind of like taking all of those different pieces and just putting it together to form what you want to rule.
I see. So in other words, I think they're maybe saying case 1, 2, 3, and 4, but they're really saying 1, 3, 5, and 7. I mean, the ones between those, they could have just as well quoted those probably for the opposite opinion in the court.
Right. I think, Day, you could feel free to disagree, but I really think you could probably go find any case or any law to really stand for like almost any position that you want. And then another one standing for the exact opposite. So
Yeah.
I should have learned that from my wife. I'll say something and she's like, you can read anything you want to. And it's like that response from her has shot me down so many times. I don't even try anymore. All right. So the weight loss drugs, that's hot. What else is hot going on right now?
Well, independent pharmacies, as we know, a cornerstone of the healthcare system. But for the past couple of years, including this year, they have struggled a lot, okay, because of the below water reimbursement rates. And PBMs are the ones actually, major PBMs, the traditional PBMs are the ones who's setting up the reimbursement rates. As they're the middleman, they sit in between the pharmacy and the plan sponsor. They manage, administer all those claims. At the same time, everything is happening. They're about to perfect the vertical integration model where everything is under one umbrella, whether it be plan sponsor, PBM, rebate aggregator, specialty pharmacy, mail order pharmacy, retail pharmacy, and even physician groups, right? So the vertical integration is almost done, in my opinion. And because of the power of this vertical integration, there's more opaqueness in the system. So plan sponsors, they don't have visibility into what the pharmacies are getting reimbursed. Plan sponsors don't have any visibility into, or limited visibility into the rebates that are being collected by the rebate aggregators owned by the PBMs. And plan sponsors don't have any visibility into the fees paid by the manufacturers to the rebate aggregators, PBMs. So all these mushed together allows PBMs to charge plan sponsor with higher fee, pay lower fee to the independent pharmacies. And independent pharmacies have been suffering. At the same time, there's a lot of legislator actions or supports, right, to regulate PBMs. I think we're in the thick of it, and PBMs know it. They know they're getting a lot of attention from the Congress level, the state level, or even the grassroots level or at the plan sponsor level. And unfortunately, it's backfiring. There's a lot more audit scrutiny by the PBMs upon the pharmacies, more investigations, and they're terminating pharmacies left and right because they have to profit. All these PBMs are part of the publicly traded companies. All these are backfiring at the pharmacies, but I want to keep a positive outlook. And I think we will, maybe end of this year or next year, there will be more positive changes to the pharmacy industry that will better service or serve independent pharmacies.
All right, here's my beef day. Michigan implemented a bunch of laws like beginning of this year, maybe last year, I forget. And some aren't going into effect for a while. But these PBMs don't give a rat's ass about this. And I think it's even a situation in Michigan, not just a law, but I think it's like they get a PBM certificate or something, like a permit almost. But my thought is that they can snub their nose at practically anybody, because how would you like to be the person responsible in Michigan for having, roughly a third of the patients overnight not be able to get their medicine because they're with such and such PBM that has a third of the market, and nobody's going to go in and pull that third out? That's kind of my thought on why none of this is being looked at, basically, or stopped.
We think cases where the state agency actually jumped in and then regulated PBM's behavior against independent pharmacy. I don't recall the specific state, but there are a number of states that have cases pending or that have already imposed a restriction on the PBM. So one thing that I want to really emphasize is that pharmacies need to communicate with the state agency that should regulate PBM. Like, for example, the Department of Insurance and Bank, most states have those departments, and many states have a PBM regulation laws. And you have to utilize those state laws against the PBMs and then have the agency actually jump in.
All right, but I don't think they're going to. It's a third of the market. If they come in and say, shame on this one, you are breaking this law, and the PBM says, so what? And they said, we're going to shut you down. It's like, try it. You're going to have a third of the residents of Michigan not getting their medicine the next week. I just don't see how they implement these laws, how they crack down on them.
Adam and I represent a number of independent pharmacies, many, many independent pharmacies throughout the country. I mean, independent pharmacies, when they deal with PBMs, where it's literally David and Goliath, right? But in many times, we utilize the state laws, we utilize the applicable federal laws, and then we've gotten favorable outcomes in many, many instances. And we've also, during that process, we've also looped in the state agencies or stakeholders, which are now investigating the PBM's regulations. And every single PBM, they could walk away, right? So right now, there are many smaller, more transparent or completely transparent PBMs in the market, and they are coming up. And so the field is, I think the field is getting more diverse. So a state doesn't have to rely upon one big PBM.
That might be how it happens. So instead of them saying, we don't want to take the brunt of all the constituents saying, why'd you shut down a third of the market? It's like, well, you shut down 10% and there's 9 other PBMs that you can hop onto fairly easily. So I think that's probably part of that answer.
I think as far as like enforcing a lot of these state laws, I know like over the summer, I think it was West Virginia had a few different actions against PBMs. And as far as discipline goes, it's typically not going to be something where they're taking away their PBM license or permit or preventing them from being a PBM. It's usually a monetary fine. A lot of the times in what Day and I do, we'll see temporary restraining orders prevent a termination. Granted, that's not from a state agency. That'll come from like an arbitration board. But a lot of the time, it's not so much shutting down a PBM from operating. It's more just some sort of penalty or mandating some action. And then the second thing that I was going to mention based off of what Day said, just about how there's so much focus on PBMs and a lot of new regulations. The Senate Finance Committee just released their second interim report. So Congress is looking into PBMs as well. I was at a conference a few weeks ago, and the focus there was really talking about getting access to insurance data for plan sponsors. But someone on my panel was talking about it more on the medical side, where Day and I really focus on the pharmacy side. But they were saying that where we are now in the pharmacy side, it took probably about 6-7 years to get there on the medical side with third-party administrators who kind of fill the same role as PBMs on the medical side. And it took like 15 years to get the full transparency and regulation on the medical side. And for PBMs, pharmacies were already where they were at like that halfway point, only 3 years in. So I think that just shows that kind of intense focus there is right now.
My grandma, Matilda, God rest her soul, Tilly, but she would say when someone did something to an animal or one of the kids in the neighborhood, she'd say, they ought to string them up by their toes and let everybody take a whack at them. Now, Grandma had some wisdom there, and I think that they've got to put some of these people in jail. And I'm not joking about that. I think just like they've done with back in the days, I don't know, this isn't the same thing, but some of the Wall Street guys, I think they probably spent a little time. They got to start putting these people in jail, because what do I care if I'm in the C-suite of these companies or big stockholders? What do I care if there's some penalty? I don't give a rat's ass about that. I can, it's not any shame on me because it's a corporation doing it. There's no embarrassment on me. I think these guys got to get put in jail. This is kind of a fanciful, kind of a far out question, but would anybody ever serve jail time for breaking any of these laws?
No, not in any foreseeable future. At the end of the day, PBMs are being regulated pursuant to applicable federal and state law. And I don't think there's any criminal statute that would actually provide some hook for the government to put any of the executive in jail. The other thing is that, I'm okay with PBMs making money. Everybody got bills to pay, but there's got to be some limit to it. So on the other hand, plan sponsors, right? They, self-funded employers, they have to educate themselves. They can't just hand over a blank check to the PBMs. And that's why there are two, lawsuits pending. I mean, one of them got dismissed, which was Johnson & Johnson employee class action case. But that case was dismissed because of the standing issue, not of the lack of merit of the plaintiff's claim. The court allowed the plaintiff to amend the complaint and refile. So if that plaintiff's firm files the right plaintiff and they're going to file it again. And there's another copycat case, Wells Fargo case. Same thing. Wells Fargo employee filed a lawsuit against Wells Fargo, alleging that Wells Fargo failed to properly manage the prescription drug benefit. It should be an eye-opening case for employers. Because otherwise, if you don't manage your plan properly, if you don't monitor your PBMs, and if you continue to hand over a blank check and your drug spend goes up, paid beneficiaries out-of-pocket spend goes up, you are going to be held accountable. Maybe not criminally, but definitely civilly.
It brings up the point about Amazon. I love Amazon and, like everybody here, I even told my wife, when we retire, here's what we're going to do. We're going to move to the cottage. Every morning I'm going to wake up and think of some gadget I need, something around the house, a new key holder or a new bottle opener or something like that. That's going to be my morning activity on Amazon. I'm going to be in the hunt. And then we're going to have lunch and then happy hour early. I'm not talking late, happy hour around noon. And then the other excitement of my day is going to be waiting for the Amazon truck to show up. So that's all I have to look forward to in my old age. Anyway, someone had told me with Amazon, it's like, because you think about these insurances coming, these PBMs are always talking about, well, you're getting so much off invoice and all this stuff. They don't talk real numbers. They talk all this stuff. But someone had told me in Amazon that Amazon has really raised the prices of a lot of things because if people sell on Amazon, you can't sell it for less somewhere else. Let's say you sell a 24 pack of pens for $10. Amazon says we're going to sell it for $13 and you can't sell it for $10 anywhere else if it's on our site. So in theory, that's raised up like all the prices up to $13. They don't tell you that it's come up from 10 where it normally was. I don't know if that's true or not. It got me thinking about that with the whole discount thing where the brokers go in with a big smile and they say, trust me on this. And, we're getting a bigger % off than last year and no one does the homework. And that's where some of these transparent PBMs are going to come in and hopefully that market around a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, brokers and consultants, it's no secret that they receive incentives from the PBMs that they recommend to the plan sponsor. Some are not. For a plan sponsor, I would demand my broker or consultant to sign a conflict disclosure. And I don't think anybody will sign it.
All right. So we covered GLP-1s, what the PBMs are up to. What other topics do we need to talk about?
I want to talk about the drug spend, ever increasing drug spend. And I touched upon it. Yeah, the rebate aggregators. CVS Caremark owns rebate aggregator called Zinc. Zinc is in the United States.
Define the rebate aggregator, Day.
Well, rebate aggregator is an entity that negotiates and retains rebates on behalf of PBM's entire line of business, right? And the entire line of business will include different plan sponsors. And Caremark has Zinc, OptumRx has MSR, and Prescript has Ascend Health. And it's very interesting it's intriguing to think that these three rebate aggregators actually dominate the market. And smaller PBMs, they can't really negotiate and get rebates directly from the manufacturer without having a contract with these rebate aggregators. And the other thing is, in Ireland, why did they set it up outside of the United States? When these claims are all being paid in the United States for and dispensed to the U.S. resident. So why are you setting up rebate aggregators outside of the United States? And, again, because of the vertical integration, plan sponsors, they don't have visibility into the total amount of rebates that the PBM actually received, the total amount of rebates that the rebate aggregator actually received, and all the fees. And this opaque model contributes to ever-increasing drug spend, higher premium, out-of-pocket expense. So it makes medicines not affordable to certain group of population.
I've said it before, we only do generics at our pharmacy. And people have asked me, and it's a really pretty simple demonstration. I basically hold up my hand with my 5 fingers and I say, this is what the brand name costs. And then 1 finger is what the generic costs. But everybody who's got their fingers in the pot want that $500 in there instead of just $100. And with $500, you can make everybody feel good. Hey, here's $100 back to the plan sponsor. And look what we got this back to you. And then, here's some money here and here's some money there. And the PBM ends up with, $300, something like that. And no one's talking about the $100 part. So it's crazy. Talking about legal stuff and the courts and all that. Where's the FTC right now? What's going on with that? I know some of the PBMs got their hands slapped for not giving enough information soon enough and so on.
Yeah, so FTC has been investigating PBMs and their rebate aggregators for the better part of 2024. They released their first interim report over the summer. Their second interim report just came out in January. That second report was really focused more on specialty generics, cost of specialty generics, how the prices are really, really going through the roof right now. A lot of what that report focused on was looking at NADAC and acquisition costs for pharmacies, looking at their reimbursement rates, and then how much PBMs are charging plans above NADAC, and the difference in reimbursement between retail independent pharmacies compared to PBM affiliated pharmacies, patient steering practices to those PBM affiliated pharmacies, and really dove into mail order pharmacies, which I think is becoming a bigger issue for plans and independent pharmacies alike, because these PBMs are mandating that certain drugs, specifically specialty drugs, which are the most profitable a lot of the time, to be filled exclusively through their affiliated mail order pharmacies. And this is going to cost patients, pharmacies, plans a lot more in the long run, all while the PBM is going to be profiting more because PBMs are able to, fluctuate mail order reimbursement to their own mail order pharmacies. These interim reports are so important because really just getting knowledge and information out there. I don't know how many lay people really know what a pharmacy benefits manager is, who their pharmacy benefits manager is, but the more that it's in the news, the more that it's spoken about, I think the more problems will be solved.
The whole FTC thing, I do like that kind of, because I ain't no genius of this, and I've had a lot smarter people on the show than I know about this. But the whole thing when I was a kid of, AT&T breaking up and all that monopoly stuff, that stuff can be done with a stroke of a pen. That doesn't take all this, court tied up at the Supreme Court, all that kind of stuff.
Recently, the judge dismissed the PBM's motion for preliminary injunction against the FTC. PBMs immediately appealed that decision. So they're fighting, FTC and PBMs.
There's always talk about Trump doing this or that. People can do stuff pretty quickly, but whether they do it or not is another story.
A lot up in the air, but I believe the current administration is, as well as the former administration, is looking into regulating PBMs more, making the drugs affordable, holding PBMs accountable for ever-increasing drug spend.
Well, the proof's always in the pudding, but unfortunately, there's so many layers and so much power there that I like to say, yeah, just look at what the consumers are paying, but that doesn't help the pharmacies from not being reimbursed underwater and things like that. And I don't think anybody gives too much of a care of all the ins and outs as long as the consumers are getting decent prices. So yeah, there's a lot, but that doesn't mean you stop.
Consumers, meaning the patients, they are facing higher premium, higher out-of-pocket costs like copay, deductible, co-insurance whatsoever. It's all because of the ever-increasing drug spend. And PBMs, they should take a lot of responsibility the whole phenomena or the trend.
I've had Kyle McCormick on the show a few times from Blueberry Pharmacy, and we've talked, and it seems like, and I've heard this before, it's like, you don't use car insurance to buy windshield wiper fluid. All right, I've got to confess, you guys just seem to pull this out of me. All winter, I've been driving around with this Michigan crap on my windows, all the salt and all that. I told my wife, I said, listen, you can press this thing here, the button, and it goes, like the pump going, and it's supposed to be coming out the back, supposed to be coming out the front. And I'm like, that stuff must have frozen there. So I wait until it's a little bit warmer. I buy some of this orange Prestone windshield wiper fluid. It's supposed to melt this and go down this and not freeze and things. And so I'm at home and I'm pouring this stuff into the windshield wiper fluid. I go to close it and it says antifreeze. And so I was pouring the windshield wiper fluid into the antifreeze all winter. And it was a cheap fix. I had to go over about 3 feet and start pouring it into the windshield wiper container, and it worked fine. And so on that topic, I don't use the insurance to pay for my Prestone, windshield wiper fluid or replace windshield wiper blades or new tires and things like that. And so Kyle and I were talking, it's like, let people loose with their special prescription cards and let them shop the best deal. If they want to get something cheaper, but maybe not get the service, fine. If they want to go someplace that's 10, 20% more and want to get better service or want to buy a annual membership at a pharmacy, things like that, whatever the delineation is there, it's like, well, maybe that one finger thing is under this cash prescription card and you're not even thinking about the 5-fingered one. And so PBM doesn't want that. They want their nose in about everything, though.
Yes, they definitely want to see all the claims, and many times they even want to see the cash claims on the data. And I believe a number of switch companies are also owned by PBM. Switch is the company that relays a claim submitted by the pharmacy to the PBM or to the plan through the PBM. So they see top to bottom of a prescription drug claim.
Adam, how long have you been in the pharmacy venue of law?
Since January 2021.
I don't see much gray hair or anything like that. You still seem pretty much enthused.
You just didn't see me before 2021. I got married in October, and I've been with my now wife for over 10 years. And one of our decorations going up the stairs was a picture of us when we started dating in 2014 and then 15, 16, 17, so on. And you can really just see in 2019, when I got to law school, there's a big change in the bags under my eyes.
Sure, sure. It's like the presidents. I mean, they talk about presidents being in there and you look at them and some of them have been there 8 years, but you look at pre-presidency and post. But I found out that gray hair is really caused by stress. There's a lot of myths about health and things like that, but they do say gray hair can be related to that. Something about the, steroids in your scalp. I don't know what it was from, but yeah, stress does its role on it. But the point is, I guess you're in a good part of the field because there's always issues. I mean, no one's real happy. And so you might as well be somewhere in pharmacy rather than floral design or something like that. I mean, be in a place that a lot of people, they're at the end of their rope sort of on things.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely not something that I was aware of before kind of starting to work with Day and getting exposure to it, but it's a really interesting field. It's a really hot topic. And I think one of the things that I really enjoy about it is I've noticed that pharmacy is really just kind of the backdrop of it all, like the setting. But I mean, as far as our day-to-day goes, when we're challenging a PBM audit or a termination, we're really just, it's like contract law a lot of the time. You're looking at what the provider manual says, or it might turn into some form of litigation where you're looking up cases and statutes and trying to advocate for a position. So it's nice to get all these different types of exposure. It's just pharmacy is the backdrop.
Well, when push comes to shove, I mean, there's the stuff that we've been talking about, the higher level stuff. When it really comes down to it, though, it's what's a pharmacy getting paid for this? And what are they able to do within the contract, or, what are they getting in trouble for? It all comes down really to what you guys are doing there on the day-to-day level.
We not only take our job seriously, but we view ourselves as the protector of our clients, right? Our clients many of them are mom and pop independent pharmacy owners. They've been in the business many, many years. Some of them want to hand over their business to their children who may also have become pharmacists. And so we take it very seriously. We want to protect their interests. If we're not successful, if we don't do our job, pharmacies lose PBM contracts, and, pharmacies go out of business. So we view ourselves as the last resort for the pharmacies.
It's something that I really do take a lot of pride on, and I try my best to, relay or give this impression to all of our clients. I don't want them to think that I would ever view them as just another client, because I know in the back of my mind, like, this is their livelihood, like this is everything to them. So yeah, it's a lot of responsibility, but it's something that we do take really seriously and something that we fight really hard to protect.
So guys, in closing here, someone's listening to this or pulling up to the pharmacy. What's something they could do in a minute before they go into their pharmacy, whether it's signing up for something online, checking something out? What would be their next step?
We post a lot of articles, not only on our firm's website, but on LinkedIn and other social media. So if you want to read any additional material, feel free to check out our website as well as LinkedIn and other social media profiles, but also feel free to contact us. We pick up our phone. We respond to emails as soon as possible, but no later than 12 hours.
Adam and Day, golly, nice seeing you guys. Thanks for the update. It's fun talking to the politicians and maybe some of the businesses that have these kind of visions and things like that. But it's the pharmacists that are in the battle, and it's you guys are in the daily battle, seeing what they're going through and helping them out at that level. So keep doing what you're doing, and a pleasure to meet you, Adam, and to have you on again, Day.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Mike.
You've been listening to the Business of Pharmacy podcast with me, your host, Mike Kelzer. Please subscribe for all future episodes.